Imagine building a $100 million brand, writing a best-selling book, and have a Netflix series made about your life, and then burning it all to the ground. If you've been playing small, trying to avoid failure, or disappointing the people in your life, this episode is for you. Because you can get the life you want, but you're going to have to disappoint some people to get it. We're joined today by Sophia Amoruso, founder of Nasty Gal and the original #GirlBoss.
The worst look is saying you're going to do something and not doing it. It's a better look to do it and fail.
She is now a successful investor and entrepreneur with her two businesses, Trust Fund and Business Class.
Being yourself gives other people permission to be themselves. Taking big swings gives other women the opportunity to do the same thing.
We have a very unfiltered conversation about what success really looks like, about reinvention and failure, especially after what might feel like your life completely falling apart.
Doing it and blowing it is a way better story than being that person that just fucking navel gazes.
We talk about the rise and fall of Nasty Gal, everything she wished she knew about being a good leader, and how she's found a new form of freedom by doing business her way.
The thing about people knowing your name is it's less interesting that they know your name. It's more interesting that there's something to do with your name.
She also gets real about surviving public scrutiny and also having the very book and so much of her identity kind of be mocked by society.
Not everybody's going to like what you do. And I'm not the thing that I wrote in 2013.
But also how to walk away from things, even though they might feel quote unquote successful, but not aligned with what you actually want to do. And of course, we talk about Girl Boss. We talk about how it started a decade ago and where it is now. There is one guarantee in life, and it's that you're going to come up against failure time and time again. But it's how you handle it and how you respond that builds your resiliency and makes you not only a better business owner, but a better person in general. I learned so much from this episode, even as somebody running my own multi-million-dollar business. And I think if you have been fed this belief about what success should look like, and it's always felt different to you, you're going to feel very, very seen by this episode. So let's get into it. So Sophia, you made an Instagram post where you took stock of your life, and I love how you ended it. You said 40-year-old Sophia is financially free and shocked she pulled any of it off, navigates setbacks with grace, and is, quote, proof that you can shoot for the moon, land in the stars, fall back to earth, and be more free, inspired, wiser, happier, and hotter than ever. Do you have a falling back to earth moment that you're most grateful for in hindsight?
I mean, I think it was whenever everything shit the fan in late 2016. And it was Nasty Gal fell apart the day Trump was elected and Hillary lost. And then this Netflix series came out about my life. This alone is a whole podcast, or I don't know what, documentary or something. But 4 months later, this Netflix series came out about my life. And I think the hardest part of it all, there's a lot of hard things that happened this year. I had a husband that left me earlier in 2016, was when this series came out and there were headlines the worst thing about Netflix's Girl Boss was its source material. And I think it was then that I just really realized that, my identity isn't tied to what I do. What I do is not who I am, and what other people think I am is not who I am. Obviously, it matters. I care about what people say when I leave a room. I want them to say nice things. But I think the biggest thing I took away from that was probably ended what I do, what I do or haven't done, or what I've won and lost, or what I have isn't who I am. And that what I get to take with me is what I've learned, and the rest of it doesn't really matter.
Well, what a way to start an interview. When we talk about that sort of theme a lot on this show, which is, I think we define ourselves by our own accomplishments, and our identity becomes what our output is or how much we're able to do. And we feel like we have to earn rest. We feel like we have to earn love. We feel like we have to earn respect. And it sounds like through, unfortunately, a very public multiple public instances of this, you came to the point where you're I am okay just being who I am without having to accomplish anything to earn respect or love or glory or whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I think so. If anything, it would be easier to accomplish less. I feel like it's easier to be loved when you're a trad wife or something. But
well, no, I think that's actually.
God, do you guys talk about trad wife stuff on this podcast?
We do, unfortunately.
Oh my God. That's a whole nother. I don't want to devolve the conversation from in the first 5 minutes into that. I'm like, so curious.
No, but
Anyway.
it is a good point where I think that is the fear for women. And unfortunately, that is something that I think you have unfortunately been, dare I say, like the poster child of, which is like when you put yourself out there, when you have the audacity to sell a multi-million dollar company, when you have the audacity to get a Netflix series made about the memoir that you wrote, like all of these things are very public. And I think one of the things women are scared of is if I do put myself out there, if I do dare to want more, somebody somewhere will try to take it from me. Or society doesn't like women who are successful. So what was your experience with that? Because I mean, you're 100% right. If you played it safer, one, probably maybe not everybody would know your name, but at the same time, not everybody would know your name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think like the thing about people knowing your name is it's like less interesting that they know your name. It's more interesting that there's something to do with your name and what you've done. Like, I think the runoff of what I've done matters more to other people than it does to me. And that's like a really special thing. And so I think like, you know, being yourself gives other people permission to be themselves. Taking like big swings gives other women the opportunity to, the space to, and also the confidence to do the same thing. And when you fuck up, honestly, like they keep following you because they're like, oh my God, I fucked up too. It's like, no matter what, like if I fuck up on stage at a conference, they're like, you're so relatable. And I'm just like, I want to do a good job. But so it's like, no matter, like, I think what you do is yourself, like other people are looking at you and being like, oh, actually, like that's relatable. And we're really hard on ourselves. And at the end of the day, I think just like, you know, if you do make big moves, you will be scrutinized. And that sometimes feels louder than what it is that other people have learned from your experience. But like the thing that people will remember and the thing that changes people's lives is like in your DMs, right? Yeah. It's in my DMs, and it happened, you know, wrote that book in 2013, came out in 2014.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like the long tail effect of doing something that inspires people is like, it's worth every minute of it.
Yeah. Well, and I'd love to go back to the beginning for people who might not be familiar with like the origin story. So you had a very non-traditional path, hitchhiking, selling a stolen book to build a fashion empire. Like, what were those scrappy early years teaching you about business that no MBA could?
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, MBA, you learn from listening and maybe some case studies and maybe, you know, going out and interning, but it's really different when it's your business. And it's really different when it's your business and you can't afford an MBA. There have been many times I wish I had an MBA. I certainly think that if you don't have an MBA, it would be helpful to work for someone else, just even if they're a bad leader, to be like, oh, this is what it's like to work for someone else. I had worked in shoe stores and like I knew what management was, but I didn't know what leadership was. And then I had to be one. And that was really hard. When you are doing all of the jobs, you are able to hold people accountable to doing all the jobs. Whereas it's just a little more theoretical when you're an MBA. That being said, there are a lot of MBAs that build like massive businesses and like decent company cultures. And it's like, it's hard to kind of categorically shit on, you know, people who are actually literally teed up to do a better job and statistically probably like knock it out of the park. I mean, my story is novel because I'm an outlier, and that's very cool. But like, there's a reason why I'm an outlier. And there's a reason why you know, that's, I think, part of the reason that building a business was really hard for me. And part of the reason like Nasty Gal didn't work out after 10 years. I mean, I don't know, not a lot of things work out forever. But in the beginning, like, you know, doing the job is the most important. And I think even for startup founders or people with funding or MBA folks, like people who want to hire like 3 assistants day one or delegate everything without knowing how to do it, you're going to have a really hard time holding people accountable because you don't even know what the jobs are to be done.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I say a lot of the reason I think our businesses had success, and the thing I wish more people understood is like done is better than perfect. And I think, again, the fear, the perfectionism seeps in with a lot of women who want to be entrepreneurs is it's like, I don't have the perfect idea. I don't have the perfect brand. And one thing that I think you did better than anybody else is you're like, yeah, this isn't perfect, but it's getting done. So what are early stage founders often wasting time or energy on that you find doesn't fucking matter?
I mean, definitely having things perfect. I think it's better to just put that thing out into the world. You know, in startup world, it's called a minimum viable product. And It's like startup, they're building software that's actually really crappy and they put it out into the world and they see how people like it. And the thing they end up building is often completely different from what it is that they set out to do. And there's, I think people can be we're attached to our identities. We're attached to what we say we're going to do and tell people we're going to do. I mean, one word of advice is just like, don't tell people what you're going to do. Just go do it, because they're going to be waiting around and asking, like, did you do that? But I think just like not being precious about, your idea may not work out, and that's okay. And the chances of it working out are probably pretty slim. The chance of something working out, if you keep going, is a lot greater.
So your first business grew very quickly, and I know firsthand that this can be very disorienting. What do you look back on and wish you would have done differently, or what are you really glad you did?
Oh, I wish I knew more about leadership. I wish I knew enough to coach people, or even that I should. And like I talked about knowing what the jobs are to hold people accountable. When you have a chief financial officer and a chief technology officer and a chief people officer and in-house counsel and a team of accountants and like that, I didn't do those jobs. I didn't know how to hold those people accountable.
Candidly, I had Googled like what does a CPO, CFO do? Like those are things that like I don't know what their job descriptions actually entail.
And sometimes they give you bad advice, and sometimes they don't do what they say they're going to do. So I didn't understand holding people accountable. I didn't understand what they needed to do, but just at the very least be like, oh, you said you were going to do this in 3 months. And then like 4 months would pass and I'd be like, weren't you guys going to launch this thing?
Right.
And as a CEO, I didn't realize that I had to hold the hands of people whose careers were longer than the entirety of my own life at that point.
Yep.
Like I was like 27 and they had like 20, 30-year careers doing what they were doing. And they still needed to be told what to do. And then I had to check in and make sure nobody checked in with me. Nobody was holding me accountable, but like I'm an entrepreneur for a reason. I learned the hard way by not holding people accountable that you should hold people accountable as a leader. And I think that was a big lesson. That's something I wish I'd done. And then the thing I'm glad I did was take money off the table.
Tell me more.
So we raised $50 million in 2012 and the company was super duper profitable.
Yeah.
The company didn't need the money. And that's why I own a house and have financial freedom, because I own 100% of the company. So some of that went to my pocket, and the company became less profitable after we raised venture capital. And that's a much longer story. But I think like, a lot of people hold out to have like the big exit, like we're going to whatever. And my advice often is just like, take the money. Because you don't know what's going to happen.
So for people listening, because you took money in exchange for ownership in the company, that it sounded like ended up kind of dooming the company, but benefiting you personally. Is that accurate?
I guess so. I mean,
that's kind of dramatic,
but it didn't. I mean, in some ways, it doomed me. I mean, in the scheme of dooming things, it's like you could say that. It doomed my opportunity to have made a lot more money had I owned 100% of the company.
Right.
The company was doing $30 million in revenue a year profitably when we raised from venture capitalists. But I think ultimately fashion brands are not venture scalable. And it was a different time. It was 2012. It was not called direct to consumer. It was called like e-commerce.
Right.
We didn't have Shopify. I had to have like a software team to build like a shopping website. It was so different. And so it was all just kind of like a shot in the dark. And ultimately, like venture capitalists, myself included, are like making bets we think are smart based on what we know now.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff's going to go to zero. That's part of it. And that's like, I've had 2 companies flame out in a few years of running my fund. And it's like, that's normal,
Yeah.
and other ones are going to knock it out of the park.
So you said that you didn't need the VC. Is it a simplified question to just ask you why you took it? Was it on the counsel of other people? Like, I think that, again, if I'm somebody listening who wants to start a business, I think there's 2 camps. There's the startup world of you need capital, you need investors, you need people backing you. Like, I had jobs in that space. And then the other side, which is like, nah, I'm going to be scrappy and I'm going to build this. But it sounds like those 2 intersected at some point.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're starting something, 99% of the time, do not get investors.
Yeah.
And then even once you've built something, like 99%, you don't need investors unless you're like building software, you're, first to market and speed's important, or you've got like really expensive R&D, then maybe you should raise money from day one. But most of the businesses, even the business I started and the majority of people who follow me and probably you on Instagram, the type of, they may be service providers, they may have like an e-commerce brand, like there are other ways to fund your business without investors. And I recommend against it for most people.
Yeah.
When I raised $50 million, I sold 20% of the company. And so I controlled the board. I had 2 board seats. My investor had 1. I wish I had built an actual board with more smart, experienced people around the table.
Yeah.
But I heard boards were like a nightmare. So I was like, I don't want it to be complicated. It wasn't like because I was controlling. I didn't even know what I was controlling.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, okay, cool. We can like supercharge the business. We can grow it faster and hire like the best creative director and have like the best creative. And, it was awesome building out a world-class team, like really, truly world-class talent. And obviously like a beautiful office space and stuff like that like doesn't matter. But like, again, I was like 27 and I was like, I have my own bathroom next to my office. This is like amazing. And that stuff doesn't matter. Part of it was just because like I could, and there was not a huge, from my perspective at the time, there wasn't a huge trade-off. And these very experienced investors were very, very convinced that I was going to build $1 billion business, which was never what I had planned to do. I was happy with my $30 million a year business. I was like, okay, if that's what you think I can do, great. Just like, who do I need to hire? And they're going to diagnose it and do that thing with me, right? And like I said, with, holding talent accountable, it's a lot more than just getting good talent on board. There's a bigger job that's yours to knit everything together and make sure that it all works and keeps moving in the direction that everybody wants it to.
So if I'm listening to you right now, I'm going, don't trust anybody. Like, okay, that there's people out there who say they're experienced, but might not be. And I have personal experience of that too, of bringing people on because they said they've known what needs to happen and then they don't. And at the same time, I don't think I'd be where I am right now if I didn't have also people who were really good at their jobs and really hardworking. So how do you figure out who you can trust or who do you invest in? Because I know that we need people, we need support as women entrepreneurs in order to grow what we're trying to grow.
I don't know.
Sure.
Like, I still don't know. I think the only way I've learned to trust people is by like trusting them. And I'm probably too trusting, but it's like I've spent, months courting potential C-level talent, and then they like quit their job and it's 2 months later and then they start working for you. And it's like week 1 and you're like, oh my God, this is a shit show.
Right.
So it's like, it's really hard to vet up front. I think there's a lot of, Andrew Wilkinson and like all these guys have like frameworks and like for how they hire people. And like, I want to be that guy, but I'm still not that guy.
Yeah.
And I could be I think I'm actually now a better leader than I am a manager. The people around you can only be as good as what you give them to be successful and the consistency that you show up with as a leader or a manager. And this stage of my life where I'm like, I'm free. I moved to London and like, I'm not a girl boss anymore. And I'm, traveling. It's like, doesn't really lend itself well to leading a team. And I don't have a team. Like I have 0 full-time employees now.
Yeah.
And, 1 contractor, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Because I don't have an answer, honestly.
I think it's one of the most difficult things. I would agree with that.
It is.
I'm trying to think if I have an answer. I mean, I think for me, it is the classic, like when people show you who they are, believe them. And I think for me, and I've talked to my COO, who's like my right-hand woman about this, is because we care about people and because we assume positive intent, we are often giving people second and third and 16th chances because we're always thinking, well, maybe something's going on with them. Maybe they didn't understand. Maybe we didn't communicate well. And sometimes that's the case. Most of the time, if there's a problem, it's not on us. And it's taken years. And still, we have to remind ourselves that, like, you saw that problem 6 months ago. You need to handle it 6 months ago. You can't wait 6 months to handle it. And I think that's the thing I've learned is like, there are some people who come in and promise a lot, and you might not be able to see through that, but you need to be able to move quickly once you've discovered and once you start to have inklings about what's going on.
I mean, I don't want my story to sound like don't trust anybody. I think
that's what I want to prevent.
Yeah. No, I mean, almost everybody around me like stuck with me when the shit hit the fan. I would say like the number of people, I mean, I try to think about like betrayal. Like that's not a theme in my life. I'm not like a litigious person.
Sure.
Like nobody's really, really like fucked me over. So, the number of people that have come in and out of my life, hundreds of employees and 50, 60, whatever $1 million and, $1 million with talent and really smart people. Like there are people who don't take responsibility for what they've done or didn't do, no matter how much you coach them or give them guidance. And most people like intend well, they want to do a good job. Yeah. Sometimes it's just not a match. But then there are the people who like really just like will not accept that they are blowing it. And if they do blow it, they're angry and they're like, I've had people just be like, it's you, right? And when you're an empathetic person who's always like trying to learn and not the kind of leader who's like, whatever, I'm right all the time. Yep. Like I listen to all of it. And I think it's really hard to sort through what I have responsibility for and what other people have responsibility for, because I think a lot of people are like really callous, shitty leaders. And I think everything is an opportunity to learn, but I don't want what I learned to teach me to tolerate other people's failures of responsibility. So it's a tough one.
Totally. When you think about selling the company, do you feel like you had people that made you believe you had to like keep caring for it? Like, was there a sense of like, you're a bad person for letting this go? Because if this thing is your baby, how do you let that go and accept what's happening, but also accepting that you're not the 100% owner of it anymore?
Yeah. I mean, Nasty Gal sold in Chapter 11, so I didn't even sell it. I stepped off the board. So I wasn't involved with the sale. There was I turned down a $400+ million offer from an outfitter of urban clothing.
Sure.
And when I owned 80% of the company. And, I have that piece. I have it in my Dropbox. Like I have red lines. Like I still have it.
Yeah.
And, before, company doesn't go bankrupt overnight. There was a series of Hail Marys and like acquisition offers but also like meddling and new investors came in. And at that point I really was I'd been out of my league for a long time.
Yeah.
The girl boss thing happened. I was traveling a lot. The Netflix series was happening. I was writing a second book. So I had stepped off. I had moved out of the CEO role. I hired a CEO for the last 2 years of the business. I didn't want that job. I didn't like it for all the reasons that we've discussed.
Talked about, yeah.
But I think like, there's leadership and then there's like spiritual leadership. I did the selfish thing and I was like, this has been so brutal already. I could be here as a spiritual leader for the team as people are getting laid off and the company's essentially getting shut down and the intellectual property was sold to Boohoo here in the UK. But like, I've been through so much. I put 10 years in. Like, at what point can I like protect myself and give myself what I need to just like get through this and keep going? I don't think it was like the best example of leadership, but there's, a certain point where you need to preserve yourself and you're going to disappoint other people no matter what. But I think I probably disappointed a lot of people doing that. For me, when I left the company, it was devastating, but it wasn't a surprise. And also there had been years where I was like, I can't quit and I can't be fired. This thing's huge. I've raised money. What am I going to do? Shut it down? I don't like this anymore. It's crazy to say like, oh my God, this successful thing and all this attention and whatever it is. But it was like, it's a lot. It's a lot, You can only hope that what it is that you set out to do is successful, but you inherit things you could never have expected. And those are fun problems to solve. But when you've got hundreds of people, it's a really different game. And I think like, kind of off topic, like I inspired a lot of people to like go big, whatever. And it's like, yeah, go big, but bigger isn't always better. And investors aren't usually the way. And press is not the thing. There's a whole kind of like picture that I think I was part of, like creating this, I don't know what it was, like a prototype or something for like what inspiring, yes, but also, this is what I need to do. And a lot of them were like, I need to raise money and, I need a big team and this thing has to be this successful. And it's like,
and I need magazine
covers. Have like a really awesome, profitable, manageable business. And you get to go home at the end of the day to a certain extent. I mean, you run a business. It's not, a 9 to 5, especially with what we have digitally now to operate a business that, better than anybody. It's like there's software gives you so much leverage to have like a really healthy business without a ton of people. And it doesn't have to be $100 million business. It can be way more fun.
I think that you don't need this from me, but I think that shows so much maturity because I felt that way too, like in my early 20s and even talking with other entrepreneur friends who are a little bit further than me or a little bit older than me who have been like, no, I'm okay at like 300K a year. I'm okay at 200K a year. I'm okay at 150K a year. Like that's enough for me to live my life the way I want to live it. And that is, caused a lot of friction, good friction in my life where I'm like, no, I want to sell out arenas. I don't know what I'm doing in those arenas, but like, I want to sell out arenas and I'm going to, covers of magazines and I'm going to be everywhere. And it's like, okay, but are you willing to do all of those things and also give up every single night and weekend? And the answer is no. Yeah. The answer was yes for a while, but I got older, my priorities shifted. I love the idea that I can take a random Wednesday off if I want to take a random Wednesday off. And I still think part of my business still isn't there, where there's so much of my business that is way smaller than Nasty Gal ever was, but that I can't, I don't have total freedom around. I can't take 6 months off, but I can take maybe a month off. And so that's something that I think a lot of business owners discover is, if you want all of the big stuff, great. That's not going to come without sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. It's true. I mean, this is why I don't have a podcast right now. Like Girl Boss Radio had 22 million downloads, and like, I started it in 2015. It was like 10 years ago, and it's like, I couldn't like take off next week if I wanted to, because like someone would be in London who, is only going to be here for 2 days. And booked it 2 months ago. Yeah. And now I have to be in London this week because I'm interviewing somebody on a podcast. And I'm like, it's like, you can do yours remotely. A lot of people do theirs in person. And so it's like, with everything that you do, just think about like what it tethers you to and how that might look, what that what that sacrifice is. And I literally won't have a podcast because like, I want to be able to like take off whenever I want, that's like that's literally the only reason. But you do it virtually. Like a lot of people don't do that anymore. And
our show suffers for it. But my light just went out. Like my light in my office in my house just went out, and it's like the video won't perform as well.
Care? You don't think it will?
No, if this is if you're watching on YouTube, which yes, by the way, we have a YouTube channel. The video is not going to perform as well. Like I knew that the moment the light went out, and I was just like, fuck, okay, and that's a perfect example of like, we could have the most interesting conversation in the world that is super impactful, that is, very valuable, that is very vulnerable. And there's going to be some people who hear it and listen to it and respond to it. And that's great. And, but you're fighting against algorithms. You're fighting against, having an in-person setup that looks really sophisticated, that costs tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce. And so it's like, if the tree falls in the middle of a forest, doesn't make a sound. Like, again, we could do the best thing in the world right here, but if the algorithm's not pushing it, or if I'm not wearing the right color, which by the way, Sophia, is a real thing. Like if I show up in black, the video doesn't perform as well. Like fucking crazy.
I understand thumbnails more than anybody. It's
right.
I started on eBay. It's like
so true. So it's like, it's those kind of things where, I don't know. It's like, what am I willing to do? Like, am I willing to fly out to LA or New York every other week so that I can film in person? No, I'm not willing to do that. Does the business suffer for it? Yeah, it does. But like, those are the trade-offs you have to make.
It's like, suffers like it could always be better,
right?
Like you can always do more. So it's like, is it suffering? Like what you're like,
right? If my mental health's better, is it suffering? Right.
If this is what you want to do, it's not suffering,
right?
If you do what you don't want to do, you're suffering.
Yep.
Like if your goals are in line with your ambition, then nobody suffers.
Yeah, totally. I wanted to ask you a question, and you can tell me you don't want to answer that, but something that candidly I've thought about a lot, that I've always wanted to talk to you about, is how it feels to have this thing that was part of your identity, but also was something you produced, kind of become a joke or like satirical. And again, super candidly, one of the things that I literally had conversations with my book editor about, my friends about, is I said, I don't want financial feminists to ever be what like girl boss has turned into now. And it feels really scary to admit that to you straight to your face. But like, how did that feel? How does that continue to feel? Because I know that there was parts of, girl boss and part of that movement that we can look back on and be like, there were parts of that, probably might have been different if it was, definitely would have been different if it was, in 2025. However, that would just break my heart. Like that would make me so sad.
I mean, you can't control. I mean, you can only hope that what you create becomes part of the zeitgeist. Like you create something and you give it away. And when Girl Boss, took off and people called it a movement. And like, even today, I read your book. I quit my job. I started a business. It was like, there was Lean In. And then a year later, there was Girl Boss. And there was nothing else like that. And these digital platforms were just emerging. And there was no example that anybody had seen at that stage of some, non-college at all educated girl starting on like a digital resale marketplace and building something as sizable as I did. And so, the impact of Girl Boss is something that is always going to be louder to me than like whatever other people ran off with and did. And so, I mean, it's in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. Like it's as if like a year ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's like actually a word. I know. Wow. I think like a journalist told me that. I didn't know it until like pretty recently. It might have been like 2 years ago or something. Like it was no longer mine like a long time before that. And I like, it's like something I did, but I was like 28 or I was like 30, I think maybe when it was published. And so I've always been referenced as the creator of the word and wrote the book, but over the years, it just became its own thing. And so it was more about the founders who came after me and became this kind of calling card for a whole bunch of things, like the rise of the girl bosses, the fall of the girl bosses, and that whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason it became satirical is the same reason that ambitious women get taken down.
Yes.
Like
that was going to be my next question for you. Yep.
Yeah. So have at it, guys. But it's just feeding like the same thing. And it's like, you're outdated, actually. And it's like, it was a fucking pink book. I didn't talk about being a woman. It was just like, it's like a pink book I wrote when I was 28. Like, I don't take myself that seriously. So I don't really I don't know. That's like not that big of a thing to me because again, like every day I get emails and DMs from people who are like, oh my God, like your story inspired me, your book inspired me, like whatever it is,
right.
Netflix series, which I'm like, that was a comedy, but like, I'm glad it inspired you, like I didn't even write it, but like,
the
that's
impact.
just always been like so much louder to me. So, but I think like, the gift that you give people is something that like, is no longer yours and they can take and do what they want with. And when Girl Boss was the thing and super inspiring, like that was a gift. And when it became something that people could hold in contrast to, to have as a shorthand for feminism and capitalism, like whatever, this bigger conversation that, emerged and, became more complex and like, that's also a gift. And that is an important conversation. So if that's what it became, then I'm also fine with that.
Yeah. Oh, I want to cry in a good way. I'm just like, again, I hate to use the word mature, but it's like it's a very wise response. I don't know if I'd be able to do the same. I'd be so bitter, dude. I'd be so bitter. I'd be like so angry.
But you wouldn't be when like you're walking to yoga yesterday in fucking London and some lady stops you on your Lime bike and is like, are you Sophia Amoruso? Oh my God, I read all your books. Like, I'm so inspired by what you've done.
Which I get all the time too.
That's what you go home. Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Yeah. But had you gone through this and been like bitter or whatever, it's like, but if that's like what happens when you're fucking riding a bike to yoga, like that's not what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about all kinds of other dumb bullshit. It was so long ago. I'm thinking about like, I don't know what, like UK taxes or something. Right. Like, how small my apartment is and what I'm going to do with 3 poodles. Like,
totally.
That's not what, Yeah.
And I think you make a good point, and I'm not going to harp on it too much because I have actually discussed it in previous episodes, especially, I don't know if you know Katie from Money with Katie, but we talked about like, it is this societal pandemic that when a successful woman becomes successful or when a woman becomes successful, it's so easy to take her down. It's so easy. And I think we really saw that in, the 2010s and into this decade where, again, to your conversation we started with, like when you put yourself out there, you're out there. And there's a double standard. There's a different standard for women entrepreneurs and women leaders than there is for men. And the example I brought up with her is it's like Steve Jobs is praised and lauded as this incredible innovator, but like he was a terrible person, like a terrible boss, like he screamed at people, abused people, didn't shower for weeks on end. And yet we seem to allow that sort of behavior when we don't for women.
Yeah. Can you think of any like brilliant women who are assholes who are remembered, who are like just brilliant and it doesn't matter that they were an asshole? Like brilliant and like iconic, but they're not. I mean, there's
the one we brought up was Martha Stewart, but like she literally went to jail. So it's like, and went to jail for something that wasn't insider trading, but which again proves the point, which is like, you can be brilliant and quote unquote difficult to work with, and you will continually be targeted if you're a woman. But if she was a man, it would just be very different. She would be lauded for very different, for the same traits.
It would be like it would be like unfair.
Right.
If it was a guy, and for her, it's like, how dare you?
Right. It's just interesting to me. And it like continues to show up, which is so shitty. And again, if I'm somebody listening who wants to be a business owner, who wants to put myself out there, that goes in the list of reasons to not do it. So I don't know if you have anything to say to that, but like, I have to believe
it's like
that
look at the impact. Like it's the impact. It's like, again, like not everybody's going to like what you do. And like, I'm not the thing that I wrote in 2013.
Totally.
But like the impact of this thing that I cast out into the world and like gave to people to do whatever the fuck they wanted with is not me.
Yeah.
It continues to make an impact. And if you're going to be egotistical about it, it's like, suck it. Like, it's still impactful and people are still fucking talking about it. When I blew it, people like were inspired. The worst look is saying you're going to do something and not doing it. It's a better look to do it and fail. Doing it and blowing it is like a way better story than being that person that just fucking navel gazes.
Sophia, I was just going to say it's a better story. Okay, it doesn't work out. Well, cool. You have one precious life. You have a dope story to tell now.
Well, guess what? You get to take that with you.
The learnings,
like, I don't have a warehouse full of clothing I have to put on sale. I've got like fucking decades of wisdom that I get to sell at 100% margin for the rest of my life. Like, that's what I got.
Yeah.
And I don't need a warehouse. And it's fucking priceless.
Yeah. So you're in the VC space now where you're writing checks. So what should founders, especially women, know going into a room where they're about to pitch a venture capitalist for money?
I mean, I can tell you what I look for.
Yeah, great.
A founder. I look for someone who's experienced the problem that they're trying to solve, because they're going to have a lot of empathy for the end user and who they're building their product or service or, software for. So somebody, if they don't have actual domain expertise, I mean, then the next thing is like they have domain expertise and they've worked in that area, or they worked at a company where they're solving similar problems, or have done similar kind of engineering, or brought a product to market that is in the same kind of like realm that, or industry that, they're planning to build in. Having a solid plan. I mean, honestly, having a team, like having like a solid co-founder. If you're building something technical, having a solid co-founder, not expecting like a wild valuation, having your expectations in line with where you are in your business, especially if you've like done nothing. I invest in founders that just have a deck, okay? And like two of the best companies in the fund are the companies that hadn't built anything. They're the ones that have like broken out and raised subsequent sizable rounds from really top tier VCs. But again, like most people don't need to talk to investors until after they've done something. So like put something out to the world, get some idea of like what, that you're solving a real problem that's not just your own, and be able to, I guess, articulate what it is that you plan to build, how it's going to make money.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I have an online course called Business Class, and there's a lot of folks in there who are like, I want to build a community. And it's like, what's that? Is that a business? Is it a membership? Mm-hmm. Is it an app? Is it an online course? But it's like, I want to build a community for women. And I think I'm just like, at this point, I'm just like,
what does that mean?
I don't want to talk about that. Like I did that kind of like my second business was Girl Boss, and it was a media company, and we had huge conferences, whatever, did like brand partnerships and all that shit. But it's like, but what's the business? What's the business model? You don't build a thing and then figure out the business model. You like think about the business model first.
Yeah. What do you feel like successful entrepreneurs know that the rest of us don't?
Like, what's a successful entrepreneur?
Well, maybe that's a good first question. What your definition of success has clearly changed. So is mine. So maybe is it traits of like, I think just listening to your story, one is it's like knowing what you actually want and knowing that changes. I think even in the hour, 45 minutes I've been talking to you, like that's clearly something that you know now that maybe you didn't know when you started. And like, that's so important.
It's so important. I'm like 41 though. It took a really long time. And it took doing it to figure out that I didn't want to do all those things, but when you haven't done it, it's not the worst advice to say, just go do it, especially when you're young. So, it's like, if you can tolerate working like really hard and not burn out and be miserable and you're having fun and you're learning and it's working out, and like, that is the most fun path to go down, but if it's coming at the expense of things that you do know that you want, then, that's something to think about. What is successful? I mean, I think they like persevere, like they just keep going. They're willing to solve problems. They're willing to pivot their business. They're willing to lay people off, start back up from scratch, build something else, whatever needs to happen for them to achieve what they have set out to do or what they really, really, really believe could be successful or make an impact. I think it's the founders that keep going that are more successful than the rest of us.
I love what you're doing with business class. I truly don't know anybody who's as good at branding as you. Like, I saw that landing page and I was like, oh God, this is so good. It looks so good. It's such a good name. Like, it's just fantastic. So talk to me about what's going on in business class. What are people learning? What are the takeaways? What transformations are you seeing for largely, I'm assuming, women that join business class?
Business class is an online course I created during COVID, actually in 2020. When I left my second company, Girl Boss, I was like, I want a digital business. I want something that can scale, that's outsized to its footprint. I'd been doing a media company and conferences and had, 25 people at my second company. I was like, I can do this like super nimbly. What's this thing called Kajabi? Okay, email marketing and automations. I mean, I understood marketing and I understood, a lot of this stuff already, but there was a fucking playbook. And so I was like, all right, I have all this knowledge. Everybody's always asking me questions. How can I scale that? How can I give it to as many people as possible without, I can't consult for everybody, right? So create a business class, which, you can't hear the branding on this podcast or see it, but it's aviation themed. So business class, like you're on a plane and you're in business class, but it's like kind of Pan Am. It's like me dressed as a 1960s like flight attendant teaching it, and every module is called a flight. There's like flights and legs and layover weeks where we take a break, and it's just super, super fun and funny and punny and makes learning fun, which I just always think it should be. And so, we start with finding your strengths, which we call your jet fuel, and figuring out where you need to augment those strengths and just understanding that you aren't necessarily going to be the person that has to do everything, and then auditing your idea, putting it out into the world, putting that MVP or minimum viable product out into the world, seeing what people have to say about it, even if it's like your friends and family and grandma. We talk about mapping your competition, then we talk about marketing and earned, owned, paid, and certain amount of funnels, and we have some bonuses on things like negotiating. We go through like intellectual property and money and some legal stuff and leadership and brand loyalty and a whole lot of things. So it's an 8-hour course. There's like 300 pages of worksheets. We do weekly co-working sessions and have different hosts, and sometimes I interview people. That's like exclusive to the community. And so there's something called the Lounge, which is our digital community with 3,500 entrepreneurs in there. Cool. And everyone's just kind of talking all day long about what it is that they're building and asking questions. They're putting their mood boards together, or they're branding together, or asking what people think about it, or dropping the link to their website and asking other people to test it and give them feedback if there are any like links broken. And so, we've had founders go from 0 to selling out in the first few weeks. The testimonials are on the website, but it's mostly bootstrap founders. So it's not a lot of venture-backed companies. It's like I do the venture thing with companies that are a select few that I think can build like $1 billion business, really. But then there's like the rest of us, myself included, who are building a different kind of business because I don't want to do that again. I love working with both the bootstrap founders and small business owners, and then also the software venture-backed guys who are shooting for the stars and might actually land and stay there.
So my last question for you, you've been through a lot of survival mode. What's your advice to someone feeling stuck in that scarcity or in that survival mode, but know that they're destined or that they want more?
Just like everything changes. Like you're just not going to be there forever.
Yeah.
Like I don't have advice on how to solve your problem right now. Everybody's problem is different, but just know that how you feel now is not going to be how you feel in 2 years. And like the hardship you're experiencing now, you might even laugh at in a year, so like have perspective, and you've asked me a lot of questions of, you're like, I would be bitter, it's like, but I can like laugh at all this stuff. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like, that's so funny that there's a Netflix series about my life. Whether the press liked it or not is like, less interesting to me than being like, haha.
No, you're so right. I mean, if we're doing it for the plot,
crazy.
It's a great plot point.
That's it. It's just like, it's kind of like, but also, if you're feeling stuck, it's like, also just like try different things, don't blow all your savings on it, but something might land and it might not be the thing that you expect it to. And don't be so precious that you're not going to identify that. And don't be so rich that you don't have to go for it.
Right. This was actually such a poetic interview for me. So thank you.
Good.
No, I just like, it's just a reminder to me of like, what's actually important. Is it important that you did the thing you said you were going to do and that it hopefully makes an impact? Those are the things that are important. Like,
and even
public
if you
scrutiny,
don't end up
like
doing,
whatever.
Even if you don't end up doing the thing you said you were going to do, it can all work out.
Yeah, totally.
Even if it falls apart, it can all work out.
Yep. No, it's so wise. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Business class. What else do you want to plug, my friend?
Trust fund, my venture fund, if you're, going to go build the next Uber or something. Businessclass.co. I don't know. Yeah, no, I really, I've watched your career and, you create content and you be best in class at what you do. And I wish I could be the machine I once was and you are. And I really admire what you've built and think what you're doing is really important. So thanks for letting me be part of it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here.